Well, welcome to our fifth episode of Winning Ways, presented by the Washington State Football Coaches Association. And I've been really looking forward to this conversation. We're going to spend some time together today with Tom Bainter, the longtime head coach at Bothell High School. And we'll touch on some other places he's been as well. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Before that, though, the quick reminder, if you're not yet a member of the Washington State Football Coaches Association, please sign up, washcoach.net. And so many benefits from it. Millions of dollars in insurance coverage and ability to have your players nominated for the All-State game. There's things like the Terry Ennis Scholarship, Coach of the Year awards recognition, Seahawks Coach of the Week, all those things. Being able to vote in the head coaches from the state get to vote in the coaches poll this year. That'll be coming out, might be in your mailbox right now, your email box, but you're going to be voting Monday through a Wednesday. We want a Wednesday at noon. We're hoping to get those out. So head coaches, please vote in those polls. And join the association. So Coach Bainter, a little bit about Coach Bainter. He's been involved in football, I think, since about the age of 8, and played high school ball at Evergreen High School. We've got two of those in the state, not the one in Vancouver, but the one in Seattle. And he was a team MVP there. He was first team all conference on both sides of the ball as a quarterback and as a free safety. And he turned that into an opportunity to go play football at Western Washington University. Now, if you're kind of new to the area, you might think, well, I didn't think Western had football. Well, they did back in the day, and I'm hopeful maybe that'll come back sometime. Maybe we can talk about that on here too. But he was a 4-year letter winner at Western and played free safety there. And then he got into coaching, and his first chance as a head coach was at Shorewood High School, spent 3 years there. 14-13 record over the 3 years there. He's been an assistant coach, spent 7 years assisting in this state. He spent 2 years as an assistant at Inglemore, 3 years as an offense coordinator at Mount Si, and even 2 years at his alma mater as the OC at Evergreen. So, but we're entering, I believe, the 26 years the head coach at Bothell High School, and your tenure there has been amazing. Here's some of the numbers. I updated it so the numbers will be accurate because Coach is 2-0 right now in 2025. He's coming off a couple of pretty big wins. Beat Kennedy Catholic 33-28 in week 1 and beat Arlington 30-7 last night. So 2-0 this year. Overall record at Bothell, it's 211-74, and overall it's 225-87. So 225 wins, Coach. Congratulations. That's a pretty big mark right there. Some of the accolades along the way. He's won 8 Kingco championships, and I believe he is officially the winningest Kingco coach in history. And 6 Crown Division championships, 1 Crest Division championship. This one blows me away. State playoffs 21 out of 25 years. That's pretty remarkable. He's been in the state quarterfinals 13 times. He's taken 4 teams to the state championship. And in 2014, he led a team to a 14-0 perfect record, 4A state champs. Finished the season ranked in the top 25 in the nation. He's always been at the forefront of coaching schemes as well as safety. I believe it was all the way back in 2009, right as concussions were starting to become a big issue, that he became a national master trainer for Heads Up Football, and he's trained coaches around the nation in concussion prevention and awareness. And a lot of that comes from just, I know, his passion, not only for the sport, but also for the kids that he coaches and his care for them. So he wants to make sure the sport is as safe as possible. So numerous Coach of the Year awards from his own division, a handful, I think probably 8 at least from the division. And he's been Seahawks Coach of the Week 5 times. He's had a chance to coach nationally for some 15U teams and things as a Team USA coach. So really broad background and a high level of success for a long time in the Kingco, which has been one of the most competitive divisions in the state, any classification, for a lot of years. So anyway, that's a little bit about Coach Bainter and some of the things that he's done. And anything you'd like to add to that, Coach?
Yeah, if you could hang around with me, that was probably the greatest introduction I've ever had in my entire life. And I would just say this. They say the quarterback gets too much of the credit for the win and the blame for the loss. And I tell you that same thing with the head coach. It's as you know, it takes an army to be successful, and it starts with players and coaches and administrators and community members. And so we certainly had that. and I've been blessed. But thank you very much.
You're welcome. And, it's one thing just to see the numbers, but also if you talk to people that are close to somebody, um, and especially people that maybe have a broad perspective, seeing a lot of different things, you can get a pretty good feeling for somebody. And one of the guys that has been close to you that has really traveled the state a lot is Rylan Spencer, right? And I've talked with him a bunch over the years, and he's not a Bothell guy. It's not where he went to school. I think Juanita, maybe, if I remember
You did.
correctly. Yeah.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
but he has covered so much football, and he's always just sung your praises. And man, Tom Bainter, what a class guy. He gets the most out of his guys. First class program. And he was just telling me things that I already knew because I've had a chance to see you in a variety of ways over the years. One is one of your childhood friends. I coached for a while. Dave Williams was the head coach at Cedar Woolley. And the first time I ever came and watched a game at Bothell and got to experience the blue train and everything, I was his guest, and he brought me along to be on your sidelines. And I know that he and Mark Greenleaf, another guy that's been a head coach in our state for many years, now the DC at Seton Catholic, evidently you guys are childhood friends. And so that's kind of cool that three kids that grew up together each became head coaches. And I know Coach Williams has been out of the game for a while and is just loving life outside of football. But what can you tell me about what was it as a young guy that brought you to a love of this game, and not only you, but obviously some other kids in your area. So what was it at a young age that drew you to football?
I would tell you that for whatever reason, I just love the game. My first memory of football is my dad on a Sunday. I would wake up and he's watching a football game, and I probably shouldn't tell this story, but the Washington Redskins were playing, and I think I was 6, and I knew I lived in Washington, and I thought that was our team, so I became a Redskin fan, and I think when I was like 7 or 8, I asked my dad if he could take me to an NFL game, and he asked who, and I said, well, Washington Redskins, and that's when I found out they were in DC. So, but it was too late. I was a Redskin fan. My mom and I went to the Super Bowl in, I think it was '82 when they played the Dolphins in Pasadena, and I grew up loving football. I had my high school coach was a unbelievably motivational guy, and Jim Fordner. Born, without legs from just below the knees, right after birth, never played the game, but was, taught me as much about football as anybody. And so I just had, I had inspirational people around me. When I was a junior, I had an older brother that passed suddenly. And it was my football team, that really helped get me through it without them even really knowing they did. Back in those days, we didn't have, the technology we have now, and things weren't, broadcasted. And I probably didn't say anything for 3 or 4 days, but just them acting normal was good for me. So I think football has just been a part of me, and something that I've always liked and wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. My wife is going to like that first part of the answer for sure. So she's from North Carolina, but at the time when she was growing up, they didn't have an NFL team. So it was the Redskins. And when I was on a college campus, I saw some girl walking by in an Art Monk jersey. I was like, she caught my eye, so she's been a Redskins fan for a long time. So, yeah. I mentioned Rylan has seen you in a lot of different ways, and I've gotten to know you not only, from Coach Williams introducing me and bring me as a guest, and then I started a passing tournament way back in 2008, and you were one of the 8 teams that showed up to that first year, and then every single year was there. And so I got to compete against you, but then also, my assistants loved that day because I had to run the tournament. So I coached some, but I was also running around and talking to everybody else and making sure everything's going good. And so I got to watch you directly compete and coach, and I could go and just listen to what you're telling your guys. And I've been to myself and Mitch Robbins and another assistant came and watched you at a practice one time when you were in the playoffs and we weren't, and you allowed us to be there. And watching you coach, listening to you coach, you are a very demanding coach. You have high expectations, and yet the way you do it is it's it's not like you're angry at the player. It's just you expect so much more out of them. You believe in them, and I know you can do this. And the way that you can be demanding, but also very positive, and it just seems to pull the most out of your players. Can you speak to me a little bit about how you coach your players? And you're every play you're looking to coach. You're coaching on the run. You're moving. You're demanding yet positive. How do you do that?
I think if you're a teacher and you love what you're doing, and you're a coach and you love what you're doing, in your heart you love kids. Um, and it's a different love than our own kids and whatnot. But part of it is I played the game. I understand, all of the emotions they go through. I did it myself, and you just want them to succeed so much. So one of the most important things that I learned at an early coaching age was that if you get on a kid, you make sure you put your arm around him on the way off the field. And I've always tried to have two personas, if you will, a coach when we're in football, and then when I'm out of football, I'm just a teacher, and they're a student. And I think we've done a pretty good job of helping kids to understand that our passion is because we love the game and we love them. And we use the word love a lot. We tell our kids we love them all the time. And it's that's what fathers did to us. We get that demanding, tough love. They want us to do what's right and to be at our best. And yet we understand that the reason is because there's love involved. And so that's what we try to do. Now, not, it's funny, it takes a while. Like last night, we didn't play as well as we did week one. But we did play well, and it was kind of like our practice all week. And so I think it takes some kids a while to learn, but I try to relate football to life in every aspect, and there's parallels there that I think they get eventually. And so, but how it is. High fives go a long way, and good mornings, and all of the things that just people do to one another when they're kind. And so that's what we try to do. And then for the most part, I think it works out with most kids, and we're always trying to improve that.
All right. Can you expound on how football relates to life in other areas? I read an article about you from 2009, and you touched on even like the marriage relationship and how football prepared you for those kind of things. Can you touch on a little bit more, whether it's that example and or some other things? How does football specifically, is this sport, it's different than other sports, right? How does it prepare you for life?
I was at an event. I think I don't remember what it was, but I saw Coach Tyrone Willingham, and he was there. And this first time I ever spoke with him, outside of hello, coach, or whatever at a practice. And one of the things he said to me, I'll never forget. He said, "Young people these days, young men, are not demanded by very many people, but football coaches are one of them." And I started looking at, as we all do, how many of our kids don't have a father figure around them? And, lots of kids come from great households, and, we get the whole gamut. But we teach discipline. We teach being on time. Nowadays we're teaching them when you walk by to say hello, make eye contact, getting back into those things. I think it's important. They don't always get it. I Well, we played in Denver, Colorado in 2018, and on the back of our shirt it said "Raise your bar." And we back then felt like we don't expect enough of our young men, and they need to be expected from. They need to be challenged. They need to have a high bar, so that they can come close to it. So, I lost a brother. You lose a game. I think football helps you through loss. It helps you to be humble when you are successful, and if you find success. To me, the most important thing is we've got to learn how to put others in front of ourselves, and that's what happens in a happy family and in a great marriage. You put others ahead of you, and that football allows you to do that because you're just 1/11th, and it's really insignificant when you look at the percentage of that. And so, we talk about 1-0, but 1-0 is not really one loss and zero wins. It's what are you doing now? If I'm a first period algebra student, the only thing I can do for that 50 minutes is algebra. And so put my focus in on that, learn as much as I can, ask questions, engage, do my work. Then I go to a different class. When I'm home, I'm a son. Be the best son you can be. Do your chores, make your bed, clean your room. Things that we sometimes are not demanded from anymore. If you date someone, be a great date. If you are with your siblings, be a great sibling. That's what want to know is, what are you doing now, and how can it be done very well? And I think if we can do that in life, life will be good. I have a saying. It says, "Life is easy, people make it hard," and it's so true. Sometimes we all get in our own way at times, and I'm just trying to help them to, do what's right.
It's funny. I had the blessing of having Steve Morton, a longtime coach and Division I football O-line coach with the Huskies and Wazoo and Stanford and USC. At the end of his career, he spent 5 years on my staff, and we always tried to speak before him because once he spoke, you weren't going to beat what he said. But he said, "Football's easy, people are difficult." Right. And that's the thing. And so if we can teach people how to be better people and communicate well, that's a really important thing. I think it's also important to be consistent and win or lose, right? We can't just love them when they're winning and just be angry when they're losing. And I had an opportunity last year to go kind of back and forth in the sidelines at a game when he played Arlington, and it was one of the greatest high school football games I've personally been to just to watch as a fan. 50-49, just back and forth, and Arlington won that one. And I know it was just a heartbreaker of a loss. And I had the opportunity. Both coaches had allowed me to go into their locker room if I wanted to, and I chose to go into your locker room after the loss. It'd be easy just to go over and watch them hoop and holler and celebrate, and but what a difference too, right? Like, one thing happens differently, you're the one celebrating, and they're, just the emotions. But I wanted to see how you talked to your team when it was difficult, when they had lost. And I really appreciate you allowing me that access. But you still were just loving on them, and yet being truthful. And hey, here's the things that, if we want to be who we want to be, like, we need to get better at these things. So really appreciate that. And I just think your consistency, and we talked before we went on the conversation today that, hey, when we win, it's just a lot easier to be happy. But how do you balance out, maybe even at home, with your family that usually isn't involved, although I know you've got a couple of sons that coach and, that maybe, played for you along the way. But how do you balance that out around the rest of your life when it hasn't gone your way? Maybe you haven't won.
It's the support at home has always been awesome. My wife was an athlete. She played volleyball at the University of Montana, and she gets sports, and we have two boys, so she's the lone girl in a boy family, and she decided a long time ago when our kids became ball boys that she needed to be a part of our program too. She opens our concession stands for home games still, at this freshman and sophomore and JV levels. She's the one who helped me with card sales today and got them all organized. So she's always been a part. It wasn't always good. There was a time when I was a younger coach, and I let the emotion of a weekend, spill into family. And we went to do you remember the players outreach? What was it? Pro athletes
POA.
outreach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was wonderful for me. It was a couples base. You went with your wife. We had Paul Moody and Barbara Moody, a couple of a coach on our staff who included me and brought me along. And one of the things, as we sat in groups, and they broke the wives and the husbands away, and the Zorns were big into it, and they would lead sessions. And one of the sessions was, how do you make time for your wife and family ahead of football during the week? And I didn't have an answer, because I didn't. And one of the things that helped me with is, my wife and kids always watch Survivor. I didn't watch the first 16 seasons because I would do football. And so we made Wednesday night Survivor night, food night, takeout. We'll watch it. I won't do any football until we put the kids down. And it really kind of opened my eyes to, I was selfish. I was focused on one thing, and it was not always the right thing. And so I was able to see her reaction to it and the difference in, her outlook towards football. And man, I just wish it would have happened earlier. But you've got to set time aside for the most important people in your life, and I wasn't doing that enough early, and so I learned that, and that's been one example of how it's helped us.
That's great. For me, it was about 2012 that I just realized like I've got things out of whack, and so I started to dedicate Saturdays were my family day, and I would, if I knew I had to do something football related, maybe go watch. Hey, all of the youth teams are home this weekend. I would tell my wife several weeks in advance, hey, I need to go do this. But other than that, if I was going to do football, it was being awake before the family or staying up after them because the rest of that day was their day, right? So I think there's a tremendous amount of value in putting aside that time.
That's what I've always done. I learned this from Frank Nash when I coached with an Inglemore. We never meet on Saturdays, never have met to watch film.
Mhm.
And I know some coaches scratch their head and say, wow, we watch film on Monday. And I know that a lot of people will tell me, well, you haven't put last week away until Monday. And I just believe in that family thing. I believe in family time. So, we played a game last night and we have a coach's party. It's a family party. A coach volunteers their home. There's food. We come together and either celebrate together or mourn the loss together or whatever. But it's real family oriented. Nothing on Saturday, and we meet Sunday night. So you can go to church or whatever you do. So really, I think it's important for our mental health. Our assistants have from Friday night off until Sunday night to do the things they need to, and our kids need time away as well. And so, yeah, that the weekend is big. But before what I told you earlier, I wouldn't do what I had my assistants do. I was focused on, getting my stuff done. So yeah, the weekends are great times, and I think a day of the week where your wife and kids know that they're number one is important.
Awesome. Thank you. So I didn't get the chance to watch this one, but there was a 9 overtime game, and that's the longest amount of overtimes in Washington State history. You were involved in that years ago. You won that one, correct?
We did.
So I would like to hear just what your memories are of that game and the whole experience. And then as a follow-up to that, are there certain practices that you do in practice to train specific scenarios, whether it's overtime or end of game situations? Like, how do you build in scenario training within your practice plans during the season?
Yeah, great question. I'll answer the second one first. We try to do every situation we can, as coaches do. Usually during two-a-days, spring football, we'll teach things because we don't have a game this week to prepare for or whatever. We'll teach situational things like overtime. I think it's important to let kids know that what happens in overtime because they watch college and it's not the same.
Mhm.
And we talk about why you would want to defer and be on defense first so that if you have to kick a field goal to win it or score, go for two, whatever. So we do those scenarios. We play it out. And I remember my talk before that was, we will win this game because we know exactly what goes on in an overtime. I had no idea there were going to be 9, and I wasn't really sure that we'd win. But I think it's important to do things like that you see in a game. It was funny. We did kickoff on Thursday, and like we always do, and kickoff return, and we did a kickoff from the 20 and a return from the 20, so our kids know where to line and the deep guys and all that. And we had a safety last night. They snapped the ball over the punter's head, and it felt good. Our kids, we weren't explaining to them, oh hey, we're going to be down here now. So I think you try to do all those. When I was young, wasn't great at all, but listening to coaches at clinics and things and podcasts and whatnot like this, and being around so many great mentors and peer coaches that do such a great job, you develop a routine. So the game, Dan, I'm here to tell you, it was at times it was the most miserable event I've ever been a part of. There were 71 plays in the first quarter, 69 in the first half, 69 in the second, and 73 in overtime.
Wow.
It was a doubleheader. It was a playoff game. We played at 1. Woodinville was playing at 7. It was 14 all at the end of regulation. And I'm going to say we won 43-40 or 43-30, whatever it was. We played Pasco. We had been to the quarterfinals a couple of times, but we had not gotten over the hump. And you think overtime's fun, and it is, but what happens after the first 2 overtimes, and it goes from Kansas City tiebreaker rules to from the 10. So you can imagine the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th overtimes, how many one plays could end the game for you or against you. You kick a field goal. Well, now you got to hold them to a field goal. And they drop back, and it's first down. They throw the ball in the end zone. It's barely deflected, and you're like, but your heart drops because that was the end of the season, not just the game. And you have that multiple times over and over and over and over again. It was the closest football game I'd ever been a part of. We throw a ball in one of the overtimes that will win it, and our kid looks like he's got 1 foot in, but it is barely out, and they called it out. 2 overtimes later, same thing. They score a touchdown win. They throw a ball in the corner. Their kid catches the ball, and his foot is centimeters out, and they called it out. There was a time in the game where we had it 4th and goal from the 2, and I called an overload set. We're going to run power, and I didn't like the look. So I'm sprinting down the sideline calling timeout. I don't get it. We score. I don't know what I would have called, but I would have changed the play. That's what the game was about. In the 5th overtime, they had a fabulous quarterback who was the Gatorade State Soccer Player of the Year, and he led his team to 5th place in basketball. And we fumbled, and they don't run a play. They kick the field goal to win it. I remember saying to the coaches in the booth, why can't we get past the quarterfinals? And the guy kicks it, and from where I'm at, it's good. I take my headset off, but I see our safety doing this. And we had bleachers in the back of the end zone for the playoffs. And I saw this kid in a little Bothell Cougar jump off the bleachers and raise his hand. And I went, oh, shoot, he missed it. And we're back. The game was so long. We had to have kids like pee in a garbage can because the locker rooms were across the way. They blocked off the road, and because people started coming, they were like, the game's in 6 overtimes, and they would show up. The people that come to the next game were there because it ended at 5:20.
Wow.
There was a 7:00 game. There was one time in the entire game where both teams didn't give 100% effort, and it was their defense on the very last play.
Wow.
We ran a simple wedge play, and we scored from the 10. And it's the one time their linemen didn't get in their stance quickly. Their backer didn't fill. And then here's what I would tell you that was the most important thing. If you got there when teams were shaking hands, you would not know who won and who lost. I was so proud of our humility. I was so proud of their fight. Kids were crying from both sides. Coaches hugged each other. It truly was what football and sports are all about. You give it your all to the very end, and then whatever happens, and you win correctly and lose correctly, and that happened. And there was a long note left in the locker room from their coaching and staff, just about how beautifully wonderful that game was, and how appreciative they were to be a part of it. And that's how it was for us too. And then it got crazy, right? Because now we're getting ESPN calling, and they had a show called Cold Pizza, and they want us on. And I'm getting all these calls from Dallas and in the East Coast about, can we do a news, spot? And we decided this. We decided that we would have the meeting on Monday, and we would spend 1 hour celebrating and talking about it. And any kid coach could say whatever we wanted. And at the end of the hour, that was going to be something we'll talk about for the rest of our life, but never again that week.
Right.
And was really proud of our kids. We came back and won the semifinal game, and then we lost in the state championship game to a really good Oak Harbor team, and so it was the most special, outstanding event of a sporting thing I'd ever been to in my life. But it was extremely painful for most of it, because there were so many times when we just were going to end the season either with a win or a loss, and those emotions, and then you have to temper it right back down because there's another play. So wonderful event. It'll be probably the greatest football story I'll ever be able to tell, and it was awesome and sad at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and just the way your hearts go out for the team that lost, right? And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
mutual respect, hearing about that is just kind of gives you goosebumps, and what an experience. So thanks for sharing about that. Part of that story, you mentioned that little kid that you saw in the Bothell shirt jumping up and down. And that's one thing that I've always seen that you've done a phenomenal job, maybe better than anybody in the state, getting the community to be part of the Bothell Blue Train, and little kids, and signs up in stores. Can you tell me a little bit about your intentionality on how you've built pride in Bothell and how you get community and kids and so forth involved?
I've always believed there's strength in numbers. And I've always been, whatever, genetically linked or from my mom or whatever, very inclusive and welcoming. I think if you want to wear something that says Bothell, or you want to be, I want you to be here. I really do. The first thing I did when I got the Bothell job is I tried to include our program from at that time, we didn't have flag, but from the lower level to the upper level, our youth program. And I was very fortunate, when I was at Shorewood, we had a youth program that fed to 5 schools, and they weren't called any of our schools. Well, in the North Shore district and really the East Side, every school has their own youth program, and they're called the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so, but the Bothell Cougar youth program were different colors. They were navy and gold, and they had the BC Lions sticker on their helmet. It took me 5 years, but we became royal blue and white all the way through. We have the same paws now, and we're inclusive. Any youth coach can come up to any meeting or practice without having to ask. They don't have to call ahead. They can show up to our Sunday meetings. We've never had that happen, but many times coaches come on, and I just tell them, like, we get told at colleges, just get close, but don't get hurt, right? Stay out of the way and do whatever you want. And the coach before me, Dan Bunton, did a wonderful job of trying to marry that program, and he did these youth camps, and that I took over. And then we just grew. I think it was 2002. We won our first Kingco championship, and we used to have these large groups of fans that would make an entrance, and we'd go into the gym and meet. And after that, we said, come on with us. And we have everybody after the game. They call it the fifth quarter. I don't. I just call it the after game. And we're in the gym. Our cheerleaders are there. All the fans that want to be in are there. Parents are there. And they've done a wonderful job of understanding without being told, you're a fly on the wall here. We always congratulate them, thank them. We win together. Our students win. If I'm a Husky fan, I say we won this week, or a Seahawk fan. I want our kids at school to say the same thing. I just, with that comes pride, and pride helps you to do great things. If you're doing something that you're proud of, man, you're all in. And that's kind of what we tried to include and develop, and it's grown, and it's been great. And they're with us thick or thin. And I think it's important to hear messages that we send our kids. We talk about the Friday night responsibility and the signing of the code, and what causes more deaths than anything to people their age are accidents, and a lot of those accidents are alcohol related. And so we can send a message to all of us. I think it's important. But man, if we've had special needs kids play football, we've had special needs kids play as managers. We've had girls play football. We had the first ever high school girl scored a point in a 4A WIA playoff game, and she kicked an extra point at a home game. And it's fun. It's about life, right? That's what life should be about. Bring everybody in, treat each other with respect, love each other up, have something to be proud of, and then be happy. And so that's kind of what we've tried to do.
That's amazing. We had an opportunity a few years ago. We had a girl, Sydney Gormley, that was actually legitimately earned all-league kicker. And she hit a game-winning field goal as time expired from 32 yards out to win the homecoming game against Anacortes back in 2014 or something. People stormed the field. That's an amazing memory for me. It's awesome. So
see, they should make a movie about that.
yeah, right.
That's fun stuff. Those are the good, heartwarming stories that sometimes we get in football.
Absolutely. So some challenges. I've got 3 areas of challenges that I want to. And one of them, maybe it's not a challenge so much, but so playing in tiered systems, right? And certainly that's going to have an impact on the overall record, whether that ultimately matters or not. And then having a school that's just Bothell High School, and then back in 2017, there's a North Creek High School that opens up within your district. And many places where I've seen that happen, everybody runs over the new school and new facilities, and so that's a challenge. How do you maintain that inclusiveness? But now there's another school in the same district, and then COVID, right? COVID just changed everything, and coming out of that. So, first of all, if you can touch on tiers, what do you think about the whole tier system? I know Kingco's got like 4 tiers, and speak to the benefits and if there's anything that's a struggle with tiers.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm just going to tell you from the heart. I don't know that a lot of people will agree with me on this, but I think we're too easy on kids. In our district, after COVID, you could do nothing and earn 50%. I think it helps a very small percentage of kids who already have a safety net of people around them in the school setting with counselors and special education and all this stuff that helps them through it. I think it doesn't affect the high end because no matter what, they're going to do great. But the people in the middle, it allowed us an opportunity to do less, to meet the low bar and still be okay. That's how I would have been as a student. I was a procrastinator. I would have waited till the last minute. If I didn't have to turn it in and got enough credit, I would have. And so I think that's what Tiers has done a little bit. Everybody goes, well, you're at Bothell. When I was at Bothell, they had 1 winning year in the previous 18. When I was at Shorewood, they had 1 win in the previous 3. So I get what it's like to be down. And what an opportunity to grow the program. And that's the inclusivity part. Their strength in numbers. That's, I think, probably what started me in that way. It weakens the league, and it was proven. We were in Tier 1, loved it. We played Bellevue, we played Eastlake. You saw our schedule. We played Arlington last year and Kennedy. We were 4-4. It was an outstanding season for us. What did it do for our league? Because of the 4-4. We had 3 teams of the 7 play home games, but it was the first time in the Kingco conference since I've been there in 2000 where only 1 team made it out of the round of 32. It's more like 5 or 6 usually into the round of 32, and into the round of 16, it was just us, and we lost. And there was a year in 2019 where 3 Kingco teams were in the semifinals. And you talked about the history of the Kingco, and it is a tough league. And we would always have great representation. But because of the view of the low records, even though we played, Eastlake played the toughest schedule in the state last year, and we played the second. They played Tumwater. They played Eastside Catholic. And we won on a last-second field goal. And it's not necessarily the beating each other up. It's the mediocre record that is not understood. And it's easy to argue from other leagues, well, we don't get to play non-league games, so we only play. And that's a valid point too. But here's the thing. We didn't play Inglemore. We didn't play North Creek. Those are big gates and rival games. We haven't played Inglemore in 3 years. I saw Marcus Carr this morning, and man, they're doing a great job there. And we need to get back to community games where we talk about revenue and we don't have enough and cuts. Well, heck, let's make the $25,000 gate again with Inglemore and North Creek and let them play each other. Let's get back to proximity. We have built-in ways to help teams that struggle. They can play non-league games and they can choose opponents. And you know what? We have coaches in this state who understand when there's mismatches, and we're going to beat you 49-0 or whatever. And that's okay. Butch Goncharov beat us 49-7 2 years in a row when we volunteered to play them, and they just were way better. Coaches have that respect. Let kids learn. Let us look at them and go, that's where we want to be one day. That's what we need. We don't need here. It's easy to get through hard. We're going to make it easy for you. We need to get better at getting through difficult, and that saves us in life. We have a kid who lost his father at the end of baseball season last year, during the season, and tragic. And what helps you through that? Learning grit, learning how to overcome. This is what life is about, and we could teach that in football, and we don't. Now, there's a lot of people out there going, we don't have what you have, and I get all that, and they're right. I'm not in their shoes, but let's find a way to keep community together, to keep gates big, and to still grow. And that should be our focus as we move forward. And I think we are. I hope we are. The last thing I'll tell you is, the people in the front lines are the coaches, man. We know the kids. We know what's going on. And we're not included in a lot of this. And it's secondary through an AD, but sometimes it's already been done. So, so here's what you learn. You get what you get and you go for it. And that's what we're doing. And it's not the best thing for football. I'm not talking about Bothell football. I'm talking about football. It certainly wasn't the best thing for the Kingco Conference.
Thank you for your thoughts on those. And I spent a few years in the tiers with the Northwest Conference, and we had an upper and a lower division, and we had some pretty good teams at Lakewood. We never quite got to that state championship. Maybe the COVID season, maybe we would have had a chance. That was a pretty good team we had. And people don't understand sometimes, because you can play in a league that's just loaded to the top, and maybe we come out with a 5-4 record, and in a typical league we'd be 8-2, right? And so building, even a lot of things is confidence. If your kids start to think they're a 5-4 team when they're really much more than that, just that mental piece. So I know people are looking for the best matchups and they want to save football that way, but I like you, grit and perseverance, I think, is something we're missing in a lot of areas of life today. So so the next thing was your school district split, and there's a new school, North Creek, back in 2017, and that's kind of old news now. It's 8 years ago, but you had the machine rolling, right? 2014, you're undefeated state champs, and all is good. And then what were some challenges with that? And then continuing, and you've still won. I think they've beaten you once since that time, but I know I'm sure there was pride in that you probably wouldn't say it a whole lot, but like, hey, we're still Bothell football, and this is our district. So how do you handle something like that?
The first person I reached out to was Coach Otten, Sid Otten. When Tumwater split, I think Black Hills was the new school down there. And so I reached out to him and I said, Coach, I'm looking for advice. What are things that you can reflect on that was good or bad or indifferent? And, he's a great coach and a great man. And he gave me a lot of good advice. The first thing that he said that we did is we had to take care of the kids who were going to be leaving our program. So we had 36 freshman football players the year before, and 18 of them went to North Creek. We had some upperclassmen that were supposed to go that because they lived on the side, but they petitioned and afterwards they were allowed to stay at their high school. The district, I think, was worried that North Creek wouldn't have enough kids to warrant all of the programs and the pay and the teachers, the FTE stuff. So it ended up only being 56, and I think 3 were football players. So they granted all those kids, student athletes, to stay. we tried our best to make it a cordial thing, but you know how kids are, and you know, it took 3 years for it to totally flush, where none of the North Creek kids would have been Bothell kids. They didn't go through the feeder program that way. They didn't. So it was easier after that. Coach Myers and I think we tried very hard to have great respect for one another, but yet still understand it's a rivalry and go that way. Um, it was kind of happened already in Little League. So there was a North Bothell and a North Shore, and the North Bothell was basically the divide. So it's weird. It's weird how you're all in, and then when there's a split, there's some all out people too, and wanted to build the dislike and all of that from, and that's part of football and competition as well. I get that, but the numbers were low. Well, my first year at Bothell, we were 10 through 12. We had 83 kids. The year after the split, we were 9 through 12, and we had 89. We used to have a sophomore, a JV, and a varsity program, and we didn't. We had a C team for the first time, and I certainly didn't like how I divided that up, because I believe kids should play with their group. And so I learned after that first year, we just promoted again. We walked the halls. The greatest area to recruit in public education is your hallways. And, we have like 6 or 7 coaches in the building. And when you see a kid that's an athlete, you go, what sports do you play? And, that's what we did. And we grew our numbers again. And COVID came, dropped again, concussion stuff, parents, one sport athletes. We're all struggling with the number of athletes, but we got back up to about 120, I think, within 4 years of the split. And so again, it's mostly within your hallways.
Mm-hmm. Speaking again of COVID, I know for myself, like I just said, hey, we had a really good team. I mean, we'd built something at Lakewood. We're very good every year. And 2019 state quarterfinals, 3 turnovers in the third and fourth quarter that kept us from going to the semis, but that's another story. And then so 2019, right, 2020, very good team. COVID happens. And then the year after that, we still had a lot of kids in the program that kind of knew the expectations of how hard you have to work. But then after that, just the kids that had come up that hadn't been in person for a year and all those things, we lost a lot of the commitment and working hard to build that back. It's not lost in me when I looked at your record year by year. The only losing season in your whole time at Bothell was a 4-6 record, which, by the way, is in terms of losing seasons, that's as light as you can get. My first 3 years, 1-9, 2-8, 3-7. Building up from there. But that happens after COVID, and I'm wondering if it could be a commitment piece, not being part of the program, and the difficulties of building back what Bothell football has been. And where are you in that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to start by saying this. People like yourself and Steve Valek and Jervis and you guys that reached out to us coaches and provided an online link to keep our kids connected with us and teach them wonderful life lessons was huge for Bothell football and our kids. And I'm sure kids all across the state. So, again, hats off to you and you guys. And man, that helped me out and our kids. And it was wonderful. We were like you. We lost the state championship in 2019, and we had a very good group of kids coming back. And of course, it was COVID, and we played 4 games in the North Shore District, and that was going to be a really good football team. But you're right. After that, we lost out on all of the traditions. The songs we sing on the buses were forgotten. How you walk around the school. Wearing blue on Fridays. All of these things were lost, and it was lost because it wasn't learned or gathered by the next group that could lead. And then when we did come back, if you recall, at least in our district, it was optional. You could go in the classroom or online, and so it really took a lot to and you forget we're scratching our heads like, why aren't we? Oh yeah, they haven't done this relearning of all of the things that we do in our program and a reteaching, if you will. And yeah, there's no question. again, I'll go back to the grit part. We gave kids the way out in COVID, I believe, in education. We worried about them more than I think they needed to be worried about, my opinion. They could have gone through things and gotten through it. That's what you do when there's tragedy. You tighten up the bootstraps and you lift your chin and puff out your chest and you go for it. And that was lost. We gave them excuses to be a one sport athlete, to not play football because of concussions, to worry. And what we saw was that commitment became similar to what we've allowed kids to do. And so it's still there, Coach. We had a talk last night after our win. We probably had 7 kids who didn't come to a practice because of a cold, but they're there the next day. And I had to tell them, and luckily our principal's there, and anybody who wanted to shoot me down could. But our team doctor, I said, hey, I'm gonna let our team doctor talk. But if you have a cold, go to school. You're gonna have a cold at home or at school. Why not have it at school? You're gonna sit at practice and not feel very good, or sit at home and miss out and not feel very good. I think we've lost things like that. Injury versus owie. Owies are holding kids out. We've got to reteach that. It's the grit part, and we're still fighting it. And I think we're fighting it in the workplace. I think we're fighting it in the world. People don't work hard like they used to because we've been allowed to get by. And so, that's what I see our challenge is. Frustration, sure. There are times when you sit and reflect at the end of a season, like we all do, and say, is it still worth it, to be honest with you? And the answer is absolutely. These kids need people like us to help them through the toughness and to teach them the things that, maybe we haven't taught as well. So it's still happening. I think it's going to happen for years, but one day we won't say COVID anymore, and it'll be wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. I love the last part of your answer there too, is it worth it? And absolutely, these kids need us. I had originally in some of my questions, what drew you into coaching early age, and then what's keeping you there? And you just answered that one beautifully. So if there's an area that I haven't asked you about that you really kind of wished I had, what would you like to say?
I would say this to younger coaches. We're so win-based. We're so win-driven as a head coach. And I honestly thought to myself, and this is ego related, that I have to win a state championship. And there's the wrong statement right there. It starts with I. It's we. I didn't play a play, didn't score a touchdown. But it was so important to me to be a state champion. I'd never been as a player. Bothell High School had never been. No North Shore School District in football had ever won it. And we lost in 06, and I wondered if we're ever going to get back. We went back in 07 and lost. And then in 2009, we had maybe our best team ever. And we played maybe Skyline's best team ever. And we beat them in the Kingco championship game. They beat us in the semifinals. Then we won it in 2014. And you know how long people care about you're a state champion? 1 week.
Yeah.
1 week. And then we're talking about lifting in January and what we're doing in off season. And I realized something. You don't have to win a state championship. You don't have to win a league championship. What you have to do is be as good as your talent allows you to be, you should be. Like, you can look at a team and say, if we make it to the quarterfinals, this is a great accomplishment. If we make it to the round of 32, hallelujah. If we can have a winning season, and that is what we should mark ourselves by. At best, where could we be?
Yeah.
And if we go beyond that, amen. We did it. We got our kids and our staff to all do our best. And that's what we should measure ourselves by. And that really helped me. Because if it wasn't a state championship, in my mind, I failed. And it's not true. And it turned me into a more of a worrier. stress. I'm sure it affected my home life. I'm sure it affected, you know, how I coached. And once I realized nobody really cares. Nobody really cares except for the people in your family, and that's football and life. Uh, then it was really it was a burden off of me. And I'm telling you, if you're a young coach out there, have aspirations, they're awesome. But the true aspiration is, what is our team capable of? The group of men that we are having this year and the staff that we've assembled, what are we capable of? And if we don't make it, let's reflect and talk about how to get better. And if we do, let's celebrate the success, whether that is 4-6 or 14-0, or 1-8. You know, there are programs. I'm just going to say this. I watched Marcus Carr's team at camp. I hadn't seen him in camp. I haven't seen him go more than 3 years. Their kids competed at camp. They won Ludus games and against teams that maybe are in higher tiers. And that confidence is growing. And that's what coaching is about. What do we have? Where do we want to be? How do we get there and celebrate those things? And so I would tell you that has helped ease my tensions as a coach. Just that part of it. And so, that's what I would say to young coaches.
That's great words, Coach. That goes back a lot of years. King Solomon, I believe, said, meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless, because he had all the successes that you could measure. And it's just like, what's it actually matter? Hey, we won, but a week goes by, and what's next? And,
Yeah.
I mentioned 2012 for me, that it was kind of a change in my coaching and in my family. And I came to the realization that, I'm coaching a little 2A school in Western Washington, outside of a really small group of people. Who cares if I win or lose? This is not changing the world, a win or a loss. And so the impact that I can have on the young men, and how you develop them, and how they can become better husbands, fathers, business peoples, whatever in the future. And success is measured on whatever you put your target as. Can you achieve that? And what a sad thing if there's 64 teams in a classification and only one gets to say there's a success because they win the state title, right? There are so many other ways to be successful. So great stuff, Coach. Real pleasure. And I've already sung your accolades, but I've actually told people in the past, if I was moving in from out of state, based on my knowledge, what would I tell somebody? Or somebody was moving in and they had a kid that wanted to play football for years. I was like, if they weren't coming to Lakewood, go to Bothell. You're going to find a coach that cares. You're going to be coached to the highest level, and you're going to get the most out of it. It's going to be a great experience. So level of respect, you're right at the top. I had other things, I want to talk about changing, from iPro to spread back in the day, and spread to go and all those kind of things. And maybe you'll have to leave those for another time. But it's been a great honor, Coach.
Thank you. And the pleasure's been mine. And I could say the same accolades to you. And thank you so much for what you do for kids, for football. And even though you're not in the game as a coach, you have an incredible impact on football in the state of Washington. And so I appreciate you very much. And thank you for your kind words.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Good luck this week, and traveling to Lewiston.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep.
Take care.